We have a ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court on the popular app known as TikTok. The Supreme Court upholds the law that was passed by Congress in a bipartisan manner, signed into law by Joe Biden last April, to find a new buyer within 270 days. The Supreme Court has now ruled that that law stands. What happens to the app, however, is a wide open question.
And this was a pretty momentous discussion. And in fact, we just heard from President-elect Trump through Truth Social that he spoke to President Xi this morning, of course, the president of China, which owns the TikTok app. And this did come up. We don't know what was discussed, but it did come up. Shannon Bream is our Fox News Sunday anchor and chief legal correspondent. She's been on standby as we waited for this to come out. To me, this makes sense, Shannon. The Congress passed a bipartisan law. The president of the United States signed it. It was going forward. TikTok tried to challenge, and now they have been denied. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and we just have this decision. It's a per curiam, meaning that there's no single author who signs off on it. The court is essentially speaking with one voice when they do that. They say this: there's no doubt that for more than 170 million Americans, TikTok offers a distinctive and expansive outlet for expression, means of engagement, and source of community. But Congress has determined that divestiture is necessary to address its well-supported national security concerns regarding TikTok's data collection practices and relationship with a foreign adversary. They say, listen, this doesn't violate First Amendment rights. And there's a big conversation when the hearing was held last week. ByteDance is a foreign entity. It does not have First Amendment rights. Why would it? TikTok is the U.S. entity, but they've got to separate under this law. So essentially what the court says with one voice is, Congress passed this law, as you said, Dana. It passes muster, and now the ban will go in effect. Now, we know that both Presidents Biden and President-elect Trump have said they may not enforce it, and there is a provision within the law that says a president can delay this for 90 days if there is significant progress on a divestiture deal. Will President-elect try to argue that there is? He's having conversations. There are conversations with U.S.-based buyers who want to take a stab at this. Will that be enough to trigger that 90 days?
Right. The 19th of January is 48 hours from now, and Chuck Schumer is telling Joe Biden, don't ban it. You'll look bad going out the door. And as you mentioned there, Shannon, Biden doesn't want to do it. Trump wants to find a buyer. The question is, Dana, whether or not you can find a buyer that has no connection to the CCP in China. TikTok likes to say we're headquartered out of Singapore, but ByteDance is clearly a Chinese company, Dana.
And could I just add something to that, Shannon? In the ruling, Gorsuch wrote this: speaking with and in favor of a foreign adversary is one thing, allowing a foreign adversary to spy on Americans is another. There's the rub. I do think that Biden's not going to do anything. It's the hot potatoes, like, here, President-elect Trump, you take care of this. Do you think he'll be able to do the 90-day delay?
I mean, it seemed like President Biden felt like there wasn't enough to be able to actually point to a significant amount of progress on a divestiture. It sounds like that was the decision within the current administration, that they couldn't legally actually claim that. So he would leave this alone, but not enforce it for the day or two. It happens on his watch. President Trump has got to be able to step up. This does give him leeway, this law, to show that deal is in progress. We've been talking about the fact that the CEO of TikTok is going to be at the inauguration. We know that President Trump feels like TikTok was a big part of his win in reaching a different generation. So he wants to try to salvage this. He said to protect First Amendment, to protect, businesses that operate 7 million of them on TikTok and maybe more. But he also understands the national security interest. And the Justice Department has argued, listen, they're collecting all kinds of information, not only about you, but contacts potentially that you have through your devices as well, even things like private messages. And there was a lot of conversation among the justices at the arguments last week saying, okay, teenagers, even if you put a warning on this, are probably going to still be happy to use it. But what about 10, 15 years from now? They are members of the military or in an elected position or in some other position of influence. Could this data be used for blackmail operations? So there are a lot of weighty things to consider, but President Trump is asking at least for that pause. We'll see if he does the formal 90 days when it's on his watch starting Monday.
Okay, stand by, Shannon.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.